Welcome to the show.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. I'm humbled that you all reached out.
Well, I guess with the y'all, I think we got to start with where are you sitting? It doesn't sound like New York.
No, I'm originally from Central Virginia, but my family's from Massachusetts. So you'll hear me say "wicked" and "y'all" in the same sentence. I travel around the country. People are like, what are
Yeah,
you, Massachusetts guy? You're a Virginia guy, but I'm
too
in Northern
strong,
Virginia now.
too strong accents. So you're in Virginia. Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Um,
just
well,
outside of DC.
we've got actually a few people in our community in that area, so that's good. So I'll connect you with a few. That's what we love to do, is connect. One of the things we also love to do on the show is always start with a little bit of empathy. And last year was a tough year. I'm not saying you survived. I don't think you did good or bad, but I think what's been nice for me to hear and share with the audience is, as we get in, we will get to some data conversations. But before, I'd love to hear just some of the hacks that you did to stay as mentally healthy and as strong as you can last
Sure.
year. Like, what did you end up doing?
Well, for one, we're just absolutely fortunate. So, my family, has just done great. My wife and I are, employed. So just from a
Huge.
standpoint, we can feel
Yeah.
blessed, healthy family, all of that. I spent a lot of time in agencies and, traveling and different things. So working remotely has kind of always been something I've been comfortable with. But as you can see with the whiteboard and everything, real office desk, multiple monitors. When I go into the office, I'm at work. Right. I've got a work environment. I'm not trying to sit at the kitchen table or anything like that. So made it be as business as I can.
But I'm saying that's new because of COVID, or you've always been able to work remote and you had that set up?
I've always done that.
Got it.
When I was in agencies, I was traveling a lot, and your office was your client's office, right? So
Got it. And agencies, that's a government term? Is that?
no, I was in marketing. I spent a lot of my career in digital marketing. My mid career was
Agency. Okay, so like ad agencies and things
yeah,
like that.
yeah, exactly.
I love it.
Digital
Yeah.
marketing agencies. Sure.
I love it. So are you on TikTok? Are you on any of the new forms?
I'm a lurker. When it comes to the TikTok, I want to see what my nieces are doing.
Right.
But you won't see me hashtag dancing any kind of latest and greatest these days. No challenges.
No challenge, no dancing. No. It's interesting you said there's a few things there with marketing and in remote. I remember I also was at an ad agency, and there was something so electric about going into the creative meetings where they were getting ready to pitch clients the creative work. You're crossing your fingers that the client picks maybe your favorite. Sometimes they don't.
I was the party pooper in those situations.
I know. And I know we're going to get into data, and you just brought up an interesting, conversation here is, if you were back in marketing now and you had to do a creative unveil over Zoom, but you weren't able to be in the room with the person, right? The energy of the room of like, oh my God, I love it. Would it be as much fun for you if you had to just do unveils via Zoom versus in person?
I love in person, right? I'm a people person in general, and it feels kind of like an Office Space answer. What do you do? I have people skills. So that part's is missing, but I think particularly in the remote setting, and I deal with a lot of executives at ARP, is people talk past the sale in agencies a lot. They want to tell you how everything works and all the details, and the client is typically wants to know what it is and why it's going to be impactful, and that's the same way with data. So I think you see in a meeting that could be a half an hour, it's an hour and a half, and you're thinking,
Yep.
You've lost all momentum, you've lost the energy and everything when you just, it goes and goes and goes and goes.
No, it's funny. I appreciate again you're saying that, and I've always felt that. And with COVID and Zoom, I want to really maximize discussion. So when I get someone presenting to me, I'm saying, you got 5 minutes to present, 20 minutes to talk. Let's go. Like, don't need to know the history of the company. Don't need to know the history of, those meetings of like, combined, we have 700 years of experience.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, how does that math work? Okay. 700 years. Yeah. Like,
we count the mailroom as well.
Yeah. Right. Let's get to the work, and then let's get to a conversation, because I'm off this call because I'm already like, I don't want to be on the call longer than I have to. So I think that's things like I'm hearing. Are you seeing that? as well
Yeah,
as
and
seems to be doing now.
it's been I've had a lot of my career has been around the kind of the senior executives, and so time is precious anyways. When I was at Navy Federal Credit Union, the senior vice president of all marketing, you had 5 minutes, and it was tell her the three things that happened and the three things that are going to happen next. And you got that extra time if any of those
I
if
agree.
any of those things you said in 5 minutes were interesting. And a lot of times it was chasing her around the building, walking and talking. So being succinct, never been my strong suit, but I really had to learn it in a professional setting.
Yeah. Once you've been around that, it's hard to go to any other meeting. That's what I see also. And when we have our team meetings, I do something similar. I give them all 3 minutes on the agenda. I give you 3 minutes to cover, what you're doing or your barriers. Let's go.
Mm-hmm.
Let's move it along. We've got a lot to cover. And you're right. If you hit on something, you will get more time. We will all learn. But if not, it's, and I agree. And once you go through that, it's hard to go back.
And that's the toughest thing with the data experts, the data scientists in our group and things like that, is they spend so much time explaining methodology. And the worst part is one of our senior vice presidents, when I first came to ARP, would say is there's so much explanation around the caveats, the variables, that she said she's left wondering, is this information I can use to make a decision, or did you just tell me a lot of different things that could impact that decision? In which case, it's where do I go from here? Thanks for the nice to know information.
Let's go there for a second, because that has come up before. You're right. The way it's come up in the past in our conversations has been, we're a data scientist. We're here to present you the data. Then the senior executives are the ones that say, you got to take this out for bias, this out for bias, this out. So usually it's also the other way, that by the time it's done, you're like, this was just a good exercise.
Right.
So it's another way to say it. Either you can first carve out the data or just present it as just, this is what it says, what's your comfort level. Not about even the company, but what are you seeing? So I just want to keep it to the company. I'm just saying, like in a general sense, like when you're working on a model, what are you seeing? Are you putting as much as you can in? Are you bringing bias in, or not intentional bias, but what do you see?
Data literacy and the ability to communicate the value of data is, actually something I think we all value now. I think that's one of the biggest changes in general that we've seen is as data science and the advanced analytics and those things become, top 3 budget items for marketing managers and CMOs nowadays, that time you have in front of the executives and what you have to say is considered so much more valuable, that becoming a good communicator of it is really powerful. And wiping away the nice to know information and getting to the point, I think is one of the hardest things to teach the PhD types.
Yeah.
Most of my time and part of my role is data literacy, data communication. And what I kind of say sometimes is I translate the geek to marketer and the geek to executive and the marketer to executive. I kind of play a Rosetta Stone role. And with the data scientist, a lot of times is what he meant to say over that last 5 minutes is that the audience is doing this thing right now. And we have a short period of time to either act or not act. That's what he meant in that 5 minutes.
Because when I was looking at your career journey, and I was excited about talking to you about this, because that's what I thought that the journey was. It was, is this, one of many type of roles that the world needs, where that marketing person who's now marketing for or advocating for data science. So are you doing a lot of the coding, or are you doing a lot of the storytelling?
I haven't pressed a button in a long time. It's really evolved, and this role was created for me.
That's what I got. As you're talking about, I kind of got that sense, which is
I've had pretty much, I'd say 70+% of my roles in the last 2 decades were created for me, either by myself or those around me. And with this particular one, it had to, data education, data literacy, communicating, commanding the room with the executives, getting them to care and listen. Those were all, all big pieces of this particular role. It was really kind of cool because they said, as we're doing this, how do you envision your team? And I said, I want a team. Like, they're like, this is something can grow, is that leadership kind of thing important to you? And I've done that. I've had teams of people. I want to be an independent contributor. I want to put all of my time into forwarding these programs around the enterprise. So I'm that special projects. What is that weird guy doing off in that office in the corner? Which is kind of fun to be the redheaded stepchild in my department. Like he just talks about it. He doesn't know Python. He doesn't know R. How does that work?
Yeah, I think it's that I believe is a crucial skill set. The storytelling. I would keep calling it a storytelling, but right, they're doing a lot of work, and you're meeting with executives that have different knowledge of data, comfort of data, risks around the data. So I think having that, I like to see that. I've seen that in other roles as well, these type of storytellers. And I've always been fascinated because that's also something I wish I was better at. I mean, being able to take something and have that and articulate that story, I think that right there is such a strength. So,
and it lends ourselves to it, at ARP, our audience is our business, right? Mm-hmm. So it is true stories. We're talking about 38 million members and 100 million Americans. Like when we are talking about data, we got to get away from the data and understand that these are people, because they'll start going down a marketing funnel and it's just like this and this happens here. And then people don't engage with ARP that way. Oh, I saw an ad to become a member and then I'm going to be this. They've seen our advocacy efforts. They're engaging with our content in other ways. They're coming to events. And particularly last year, when we went all in on COVID, our audiences were the ones impacted the most. Their experiences with us were not a linear, touch point type of experience. And that's the marketers, you got to really break them away from this linear journey. And that's exactly what it is the story of the data.
Well, I was just going to say, I'd love to, if you can share what you can on that COVID journey. It is a class that is getting vaccinated right now. It's a hard hit class. What did you learn that surprised you? What did you learn that delighted you? Tell us about, that.
So I'd say from a delight standpoint, and if you've got business analysts and in our department, our senior vice president would be called a chief data officer. Most modern organizations, we're not in marketing, we're not in IT, we're the keeper of the facts. ARP went really all in last year and said, we do a lot for a lot of people, but this is going to be COVID. We know this is not a short haul thing. No matter what people want, this is going to be a year. This is going to be years. And so much attention, effort, programs, that kind of everybody, the CEO saying, this is what we're doing right now.
Right.
That renewed focus actually, brought around a lot of pride. We could see the impact we were having, and we knew we weren't doing some of these, which at times are more fun activities, but we were 100% trying to impact this audience. A big thing was fraud. Huge concern with misinformation and fraud around these types of issues, and people, potentially getting their identity stolen because they're, in this eagerness to get their vaccines or whatever. So knowing that we had an impact there. So I think one thing is, to bring it back, is a lot of pride. I feel kind of renewed happiness about being a part of this organization and social mission.
As best as you can talk about, just straight curiosity, is when you went through COVID with your community, was it best channel? Was it text? Was it email? Was it mail? What can you share? I'm just straight curious. Like, was it email, mail? Like, how did you end up communicating to the masses that maybe surprised you, or you knew they would read it?
Direct mail is a powerhouse for membership and for many things, but not for our response to COVID. Digital first. 100%. That's where the misinformation is. That's where the media is. That's where we had to get that voice out there, the advocacy group, being on the Hill, working with bipartisan leadership to try to make sure that we were in the forefront. I worked directly with Google and some of our digital vendors. So on the Google side, we got listed on their resource site as, a top information resource, which was huge. We got whitelisted to run ads for those keywords that others couldn't, because we were seen as that reputable source. But then we did, which I would have laughed at many years ago, is teletown halls. If you told me, hey, we have a dial-in teletown hall, but we were getting, Dr. Fauci did one of them. The people we were getting who were saying, sure, he was 5 minutes late to the teletown hall, and he said, I'm sorry, I was with the president. And it ran a little long, but that was massive. The role that the website played, social media played, these teletown halls, that greatly, we couldn't do our in-person events. which was usually one of the best ways to get out relevant information to a local community, is get them in the building and have a real face-to-face in-person event. We couldn't do that.
So I've got a couple questions. This is fascinating. Where are you in that workflow? Because you can play a lot of those positions. Were you the one that brought up the idea of some of these, or when they brought it in, you were there bringing the data? Like, I love every one of them. Now walk me through.
It's like, I'm a cog in the wheel at the end of the day. I'm not the masterminds and genius of our social mission or any of this. But when you're that fly on the wall in the room and they're saying, how do we get this message out? Who can talk to Google to see if Google has anything that they can do with us as being, a relationship manager with Google? I just get on the phone with the local rep and, iterate these ideas, because it's a rope a scope. Nobody can run ads for these keyword terms. That's a rule. But could we, if we were approved? And they're like, let's try to go through an approval process and kind of iterating those ideas. And then, of course, the measurement aspect. And one of the biggest themes that, that has been a part of my role for the last 2 years is data ownership. We have agencies, we don't literally own that data. We find, if you really think about it, with all the tech vendors, all the agencies, different things, is valuable data to us may be in a system owned by a vendor. And we don't have a direct feed in any way to our environment, so we can't work with that information. I think that was a real, something we've said for a while, but I think all the way to the top realization when they wanted to measure the impact we had, and would say, well, that search marketing effort was managed by this agency, and they say, how does it perform? And we say, well, the performance data is coming in an email or in a PDF. How do you work with data that is literally text embedded in a PDF?
God.
We can't do anything with it. Our social media analyst guys, they might be logging into 6 different tools because Facebook doesn't want to pass its data anywhere. So,
yep.
So that's been, it went from something I was trying to evangelize a couple of years ago to the last year was number one goal: own our digital data, get into our systems, no matter what.
It's kind of like Zoom interviews. Like, you and I have been using Zoom, Skype, WebEx, not new, right? How many times have we been saying you could interview people on Zoom or you could do work on Zoom? And now I don't think anyone could think of it without it. So the point is, like, you've been saying we should get more ownership of our data or marketing data, this type of data. And now everyone's like, yeah, that makes sense. Not new, but now it's great.
And we're going through, the buzzword of the industry, but full force we're in our second year of a digital business transformation, from the ground up.
I've never heard that term. What, is that a term?
But my department manages what we call the EDP, the Enterprise Data Platform, but it is the centralized data platform, right?
So the data platform, are there a lot of data scientists and data engineers trying to get, is that?
Yeah, we have, our department is mostly the data scientists and the advanced analytics and the business analysts. The team that I actually sit on manages this new EDP. There's multiple layers of our business transformation, because there's the MarTech, there's the, member communications types of things. There's these other aspects of how we interact, how we orchestrate, activate, and touch the resource of the valuable information, getting it to the citizen data user around the enterprise.
One of our sponsors does Apache Kafka. Are you guys in Kafka, or is that what you guys are using? Or
no, we're AWS S3. It's a pretty interesting environment that we're kind of co-developing in certain ways, because there's also this citizen data user analytics layer where we're skating to where the puck will be. We're building out the enterprise data platform and email and direct mail and call center and member information. All of that's, what we're doing right now. But at the end of the day, there's somewhere across the building who needs to make business decisions and they want a dashboard. And so we have enterprise Tableau, and then we have our EDP, and we want Tableau or MicroStrategies or things to be pulling off of the raw data layer, but that's not built yet. So we need to connect into that analytics layer and run kind of at the same time in parallel, and at some point, hopefully have a bit of a switch over.
This is a great place to maybe even end on. If there is a little bit of advice, even though my mic's not, a little bit of advice, because you're right, you are not at the beginning of the data transformation journey, right? You're not at the end either. So this would be a great check-in. Is there any best practice or any things that you've learned that you can share publicly? And say, you know what, doing it again, we got lucky. This was the order we did it in, or we got lucky, or we were smart, or we did the best planning. What do you think, looking back on where you are now, some of the things that you did that you can share that were the right decisions?
Not being afraid to tell the executives that it's not going to go well all the time, and that we're going to just have to plain 180 at times. And, I think our leadership did a great job of saying, you've budgeted this and we're doing this for 3 to 5 years. Guaranteed there's going to be a technology change in 2 years. And something that you loved will get scrapped. And we'll say, sorry, you could go that mainframe route and we could, which obviously nobody does anymore, but you get the analogy, is we could build something that becomes obsolete in a few years. So you might have to hear is, nope, AWS is out the door. We're now doing Acme services, and we gotta be portable.
Manage up, keep communicating.
Yeah, and not being afraid to say the bad news. Right. That's something people don't want to do, is tell them that you're going to hear bad news. And luckily at ARP, it's great that we have leadership who says, I want to hear the bad news too. Tell me what's not working. Tell me what to be scared of. Tell me what's going to cost money. Just tell me.
And now that everybody's working from home, not traveling as much, are you ahead of schedule? Are you behind schedule? Because
actually we are, because of not having, for our portion of it, some of the MarTech things, some of these other things might not go as fast, but for our portion of it, less meetings is better. It significantly increases the value of time and gets our people focused on the right things. And so we are, now that I say it, I'm probably going to get a call in a little while. Guess what went wrong? But we're really, really happy with how the last year has gone for our particular role.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, listen, we are a community, so this information is helpful for our community.
Hopefully
we get together to talk like this, to both meet and engage, just learn. So I think now, as I hear other people that are through places of digital transformation, it's okay with you. I'd love to connect people.
Of course. We're all doing it new. So that's the thing, is there's no blueprint. There really isn't. So when, the Gartners and the Forresters say, do you want to read this paper? I'd say yes, but it's not going to give me next steps. Most of the time it just validates.
Yeah, that's all we did just now, is validate 100%.
Which is helpful.
Yeah.
It's helpful in the boardroom, not necessarily helpful for the engineers.
No, exactly. So what I'll do is, we have a few people in your area.
Silicon Valley East, we used to say.
Yeah, so I'm going to connect you.
Sure.
Some might be able to help you. Some are just good to network, right?
Certainly.
What I try to do is I try to do these podcasts because we have a really good community, but then I try to do this, and then I'll connect you with people on LinkedIn. Ideally, you and them figure out if you want to just chat on LinkedIn, if you want to have a Zoom. It's a small world. We're trying to build not the largest community, but just an engaged, empathetic, mindful community. Self-isolation has been impacting me. I need that human interaction of my peers that I like to talk to, right? So to me, this is a great day for me. So maybe I needed this more than you, but this is a good day for me. I get to meet somebody.
Yeah. No, I'm typically an in-person type of person. So that's the sad side of what's been going on, is I can't just walk into somebody's office,
Exactly. All right. And this is the Data Standard. We'll get our microphones fixed. And we're sponsored by Pandio. And we appreciate everything that Pandio does for us. They are the leader in distributed messaging. So thanks again for being on the show.
Yeah, excellent. Great talking to you.